Judgment in the matter involving the SIU and service providers appointed by the Gauteng Education Department has been reserved. The matter relates to the disinfection of schools in Gauteng to the tune of 431 million rand. The SIU wants the tender to be declared invalid and unlawful and the funds to be recovered. Our reporter, Tshegohaco Moagi, has been following the proceedings. Tshegohaco, a very good afternoon to you. What a blow indeed for those service providers who won those tenders and went out and disinfected the schools indeed. Tell us more about what transpired today.
Absolutely, Sis Tammy. It is a huge blow in that their accounts have actually been frozen. So it really is quite a blow for these service providers. So just to let you know what then took place in the Special Tribunal Court today, we heard from representatives, those representing the SIU, and advocates and attorneys representing these companies that were appointed by the Gauteng Department of Education. So what we then heard was the argument that these companies did not have, they weren't supposed to actually be providing these services. They did not have the actual services that they did not have the actual services that they needed to provide these kind of services. So in other words, these companies were not registered on CSD and they actually were not contracted. They were not supposed to be contracted to provide this disinfection services that the Gauteng Department of Education then required. But then it came back and to the attorneys for these companies this time, really just saying that, you know, the issue of the CSD was never an issue for the Gauteng Department of Education, in that the companies did say that they would register on the CSD. So the CSD is actually the government portal where companies register they register their details and the services that they offer, and this is then given to them. It's put on the government portal, and then government departments are able to actually see more about the company if they need a particular service. So majority of these companies, if not all of them, did not register on CSD. But one of the attorneys represents argument to be put on the table, saying that the work has been done by the companies, and if the work has been done, then there really should not be an argument about the CSD issue. They've done the work to the best of their ability, and that this was needed on an urgent basis. And you'd remember, Sis Tammy, that the matter of the urgent basis is because schools were going to reopen, and there was a huge call from the school governing bodies, from principals, from teachers, from parents, and from everyone really within the community, including teacher unions, that schools need to be disinfected before learners go back to school last year. This, of course, after the hard lockdown of level 5 that we faced in March. So the big thing that was really given by the SIU team was that none of the service providers were actually accredited to provide these services, meaning they did not have the right tools to provide the services, or they are companies that did not necessarily provide these services before COVID-19. And of course, then the comeback being, but the service has now been provided, and the issue of CSD should not really have been put on the table in the first place.
Tshegohaco, the issue really then goes back to procurement. We know that you do need to be on the government central database in order to even be able to do any sort of government work. But these procurement processes were then clearly flouted by those responsible for handing out and giving out the tenders. Absolutely. And then this means that there was then of deviation, Sis Tammy, when it comes to the issue of handing out this particular tender. We understand that the SIU's investigation has shown that some of these tenders were actually given to these companies via WhatsApp. And so that means that the procurement system was completely flouted. And this is something that Edward Musuwe would need to answer for, because we understand that he was the accounting officer in this matter of the tenders that were handed out. So the procurement issue, of course, is a huge problem. And the issue also around the supply chain. How do you move from the company applying for this particular tender, but nothing else in between is actually given, or there isn't, the issue of registration on the CSD. There isn't a double check of where these companies are from or what services they're actually able to offer. So definitely procurement is also a huge issue that has been raised by the SIU. I mean, the mere fact that some of these companies were given this tender via WhatsApp, a huge concern for the SIU. Tshegohaco Moagi, thank you very much for that update.